Hi guys, welcome back. Today's video is going to be short and sweet. I'm basically going to be covering a few lessons that I've learned in my first year as a consultant. Now, I use the term year very loosely because I was there for all of 7 months before I left for maternity leave, but we're rounding up, so we're just going to go with it. First thing to say is that the learning has just begun. I've said this a lot in my previous videos, and that's because it's true. A lot of the times when I've spoken to colleagues who are coming up to the end of their training, there is this hesitancy to take the plunge to being a consultant because they're just not ready. There's this whole idea of being ready to be a consultant. And most times what I think people mean by being ready is that they feel like they don't know everything. In radiology, for example, we have no exit exam. The last professional exam you will write is the FRCR2B. And for most people, that's written in the first few months of your 4th year of training. Essentially, based on knowledge, you're about as ready to be a consultant as you will ever be after writing that exam. In fact, by the time you get to the end of your training, you probably know less than you did right after that exam, particularly in areas outside of your special interest. So what am I trying to say? Really, learning is lifelong. Some of the best learning that you're going to do will only start when you actually become a consultant. So it's not something that you should wait to finish doing before you actually take the plunge to taking up a consultant role. Next is that mistakes are inevitable. There is a saying that if you haven't made any mistake in what you're doing, you're either lying or you haven't done enough of whatever it is. There is an unrealistic expectation on doctors and particularly consultants to be infallible. You have to know it all. You're not allowed to admit that you've made a mistake. And this is why it's difficult for doctors to often admit that they are wrong. The earlier you realize that this is unrealistic, the better, and you will stop beating yourself up about every little mistake that you make. Obviously, you should go without saying that mistakes are different from negligence, and this does not mean that you should be careless or you disregard due diligence. Colleagues are your greatest resource. I did a video recently on imposter syndrome, and I'm going to leave a link to that in the description box. So if you haven't watched it, then you can watch it after this one. But essentially in that video, I mentioned about how much I relied heavily on my colleagues during my first few months as a consultant, and I still rely on them on a daily basis for help and advice. Obviously, this is a lot easier when you work in a department where you are in good terms with everyone and you're comfortable to approach your colleagues for help. But even if that's not the case for you, you can also reach out to people that you've worked with in the past. Because we move around so much from hospital to hospital as doctors in training, it's difficult to form those deep roots with people, and often you just forget the people that you've met in a different hospital who you may have actually gotten on with quite well. So if you are struggling to find someone to talk to in your immediate environment, then I'd encourage you to also reach out to people you've spoken to in the past. Personally, I wouldn't be offended, or I wouldn't even mind if someone who I knew before emailed me or phoned me up to ask for advice. You get a lot farther when you're kind to people and you are helpful. As we all know, like, the work in the NHS is getting more and more stressful by the day, and this often means that all these stresses at work are transferred into us, and people tend to internalize them, and this can sometimes manifest in people being short towards their colleagues or other health professionals. I myself have also had this happen where I find myself being short with colleagues or short with people in general just because I'm tired, I've had a very long day. And often it takes an active decision in my head to make sure that I'm not projecting my feelings about the day or my stresses onto my interactions with my colleagues and other health professionals. Honestly, the whole transition and life just goes a whole lot smoother when you are kind to people, when you get on with people, when they like you, and people are often willing to go out of their way to help you if you're someone that they actually like. Finally, you are essentially a manager. When I first started a job, I wanted to get some biopsy needles that I was used to using in my previous trust, but we didn't use in my current trust. And I thought it would just be as easy as saying, oh, can you please buy these needles? Thank you very much. But they quickly told me that I had to go about making this whole business case for why I thought those needles were needed. Why do I think they're better than what we currently have? Do I think they're a suitable replacement? Do I have to organize training for people to be able to use these needles? Do I have to, what is the cost? I had to go through several steps of proving that this was necessary and presenting them to the procurement team, which was then discussed at a business meeting before the request was finally granted. And it basically made me think that actually, even though I'm not the clinical director of the department, I am still responsible for things that happen in that department. You're responsible for the products of that department and what services end up coming out of your department. Just by being a consultant there, you're essentially a manager in your own right. It doesn't always feel that way, and of course it just feels less so when you're someone who thinks that you're not good enough, or you're too young, or you just come up from being a registrar. Cue my post-imposter syndrome. However, I think we should view this as a positive as well, that you're now in a position of authority, and somebody has clearly thought that you are good enough to be put in that position, and you're able to actually use that position for a lot of positive things within your department. Alright guys, that's the end of this video. I did say it was going to be short and sweet, and so here we are. If you like that video, please leave a like below. If you have any suggestions of videos you want me to do, then please leave me a comment in the description as well. Also consider subscribing to the channel if you want to see more videos of my life as a radiology consultant, and just me talking about medicine in general. As usual, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!